Welcome, everyone. We are at the 7th meeting of the Local Planning Committee of the Village of Ossining Downtown Revitalization Initiative. We still have some folks joining the call, but we wanted to go live and we'll get started in just a moment. Jamie, if you can share the presentation, that'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Are you able to see it?
Yes, we are able to see it. Thank you. Okay. Maybe we could start by doing a round of introductions. This meeting is in a hybrid format. So we have a handful of people who have gathered in the boardroom at Village Hall. And we also have a number of people who are using their own computer and phone to join the meeting. So I think it would be helpful for us to do a quick round of introductions so that everyone knows who is present. I can start, and then maybe we can go around the in-person room and then the folks online. Does that sound good? Okay. Hi, my name is Catherine Zanell. I'm a planner at BHB, an engineering and planning firm. And we are delighted to be working with the Village of Ossining and the New York State Department of State to facilitate the DRI program in Ossining. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, David.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Court from DHB, working closely with Catherine. Nice to see all of you for the first time in person.
Susan Landry with the Department of State, and I'm the representative for the multi-agency state team, which includes Department of State, Empire State Development, and Homes and Community Renewal.
Hi, Karen Detroit, Village Manager.
Eric, do you want to say hi?
Okay.
Maddie Sahaj, Assistant Village Manager, Village of Ossining.
And I'm Seth Roy. I'm the chair of the village.
Kim Jacobs, longtime Ossining resident.
Dana White, Village. Erica Butch, former chair of the Village Environmental Advisory Council.
Okay, thank you. Jeannie, can you hear everyone well on your side? Just want to make sure the audio in the room is working well.
I'm having a hard time hearing, but my speakers are not hooked up. So I would ask maybe if, say, Marlene, can you hear everyone?
And there is a little bit of feedback though.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, maybe I'll move my mic a little farther away. All right, so let's go through and have the folks on the call introduce themselves. I see Melita. Would you like to say hi? Maybe Melita stepped away. Marlene, would you like to say hello?
Hello, I'm Marlene Cheatham and I am chair of the Ossining, Village of Ossining Zoning Board.
Thank you. Thomas, I see you there.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
Sorry, there are two Toms. I was looking at Thomas Carey, but Tom Scattergoon, please go ahead.
No, Tom Carey first, always.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everybody. Thomas Carey. I'm a voting member with the MHREDC, lifelong Verplank resident right in Cortland. And I'm also the president of the Westchester Putnam Central Labor Body.
Great, thank you. I saw that we were also joined by Joyce. Joyce, you on the call?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Joyce Cole. I'm a lifelong resident of Ossining and the village historian. Forgive me for not being on camera. I am in transit. Thank you.
Great. I'm having trouble seeing if there are any other LPC members.
Yeah, it's Marcia. I'm Marcia Gordon.
Great. Hi, Marcia. Thank you for joining.
I'm sorry I'm not on video. I'm actually just came in from a playground in Washington Heights and I'm watching two children here, my grandchildren. So I just wanted to come on for a little bit at the beginning. Thank you.
Okay, great. Do you have any other LPC members on the line?
Yeah, hey, everybody. It's Jeff Shoemaker, resident of Ossining and also an urban designer and planner. Great to see everybody.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hi.
Any other LPC members?
Hi, Melita.
Awesome. Hi, Melissa. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Lovely to see your shop. Okay, I think we're expecting Brent and Peter to join us as well. And I know Adam is also planning to come in person, but let's go ahead and get started. Jamie, if you can move to the next slide.
Catherine,
Yes,
I hate to interrupt. This is Marcia.
yes.
At some point, probably in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to have to get off. So I'm wondering when it would be appropriate for me to just say an idea that I have that I'd like the group to consider today, if that's appropriate. If not,
Sure,
I'll
yeah.
wait. I'll come back on.
Okay, so Jamie, would you be able to switch the slide and then we'll do the preamble and then turn it over to you, Marcia.
Oh, no, that's okay. Do the preamble first. That's fine. Thank you.
All right, I'll go ahead and get started. So just as a reminder of the conflict of interest, recusal and disclosure expectation, each local planning committee member is reminded of their obligation to disclose potential conflicts of interest with respect to any of the projects that may be discussed today. If you have a potential conflict of interest regarding a project you believe will be discussed during the meeting, please disclose it now and recuse yourself from any discussion or vote about that project. For example, you may state that you are a family member of a financial project, or you are on the board of an organization proposing the project. Any members need to make a disclosure.
I see you have Jeff.
Yeah, just to say that I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of background. I've been approached by a potential bidder for the post office Market Square sites. It's not definite yet, but I just wanted to make that known to join the team.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Brent, you got a minute too? Hello, thanks for joining us.
Yes, I have the conflict of serving as the executive director of the Sing Sing Prison Museum, and also I'm in negotiation with the Olive Opera House as the site for the museum's preview center.
Okay, great, thank you.
Please inform the co-chairs or the entire LPC during the meeting if the need to disclose a conflict arises unexpectedly, and of course, then recuse yourself from discussion or voting on that project.
Okay, Marcia, I can turn it over to you.
Thank you. And again, I apologize for kind of jumping ahead here. But I just want, in case I need to jump off, which I probably will, I just wanted to, one, thank everyone for the real thoughtfulness and, you know, multiple rounds of voting and considering and thinking about all of these projects and what's best for the village. And it's really an honor for me to be a guest in the village and working with you. And I've worked on a couple of other LPCs and with the Regional Economic Development Council. And I just wanted to make an observation. And Tom Scaglione, we often do this at the REDC also, you know, and I know, you know, if you look at, from what I understand, you know, it's appropriate to kind of present to the state, you know, while we know it's 9.7 million, it's appropriate probably to present about 13 million. And if you take a look at probably the 5 projects that, you know, kind of, you know, from the bar graph got the least support, I think it was the facades, which I know is much more complicated than we thought, and the public art, and I think the Wi-Fi and the pier and one other. I always lose the one. The wayfare, the marketing and the wayfaring. Take that away, and then if you add up what's left, which is what got, you know, with the most support, I think we come in at something, you know, my math is right, something like $13 million. So, you know, after consideration of what everyone else had to say and thought, and, and voted, kind of voted. I just wanted to throw that out for consideration during this meeting and the next meeting when the final vote is. So I hope that's appropriate, and I'm doing this with utmost respect for the residents of the village. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcia. I know that we've also been joined by Mayor Levin, and so I'm glad to turn the floor over so she can say hello. Mayor Levin, are you there?
So I am. I'm having. Is that Catherine?
It is, yes.
It's I can hear everybody except you.
Oh no, I was trying to.
I don't know if it's just me.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Yeah.
We can hear you,
So,
but it's not as clear as the other speakers.
Okay.
You're speaking to me or to Catherine?
I'm sorry, Rika, I don't mean to interrupt you. Catherine, is it possible for you to switch a microphone so that we can see if it's your voice or if it's the connection itself? Just because I want to make sure that the mayor can hear you.
How's this? Is that better?
No.
Honestly, no.
So pretend you're, you know what? Pretend you're sitting to the crowd and project your voice. You'll be fine.
Okay.
Honestly, it's the advantage of Zoom is that people in Zoom can hear each other really well. It's harder in the live. So the hybrid, I think, is challenging, although I'm very appreciative that we do hybrid. A lot of communities don't. So it's helpful for everybody around. Look, folks, we've all gotten to know each other. Let me make it short and sweet with my already having spoken. There's been a lot of work done. No one can say that it's moving slowly. This is one of those things that's been moving at a nice clip with everybody involved. Almost no hiccups. We've had the community engagement. We've had the voting. We've looked at different ways of deciding, which is where we're at right now, what makes the most sense and in which priority order. And some people, I think there were a couple of emails that came across. This is the time for each of us to sort of say, what are the top things that we want to do? And I agree with Dr. Gordon. This is a time to say, I always like to say this, if I had $100, what would I spend it on? If I had another 100, what would I spend it on? And to think, and I think that Marlene Cheatham said this last time, maybe I'm giving you credit that you didn't earn and somebody else did, so I apologize, but I think it was you, Marlene, that said, you also have to look at it and what impacts what and what fits into a portfolio. And I just like us to focus on that. So if we do one thing and it affects another, the Olive Opera House together with Sing Sing, they work well together. If we don't do one, do we do the other, etc. The other way to look at it is what did everybody start seeing bubble to the top? And if you see what's bubble to the top and you're okay with it, I'll go for okay. I'm not sure everything has to be, I'm really thrilled and I want to fight for my one project. If you think that this serves the top 5, the top 6, as Marcia had suggested, the top 7, whatever number you want to go to, right? The top 10, whatever that number is. If that really serves the deepest and widest members of our community, and you're satisfied that you are going to go to bed tonight saying the top X that I chose will serve the largest group in a way that if we didn't have this funding, this very specific funding, it would not be done. That's to me, if we can get there, each of us, then I think we're in a good place. And I think, as Marcia had actually pointed out, we are really so close already. Now we're just, I think we're fine tuning, prioritizing. So I hope that that's where we go. Because my stuff has so much background noise from where I am, I'm going to mute, etc. So, and I'm sure people, I don't know if people are using the chat or not, but that's what I want to say. I wanted to lastly thank everyone, every single person who's taken so much of their personal time away from their family, their jobs, and everything else for something that's going to affect us for the next decade, possibly longer. So I do sincerely want to thank everybody for their thoughtfulness and their time to this.
Catherine, if I could just say one more sentence. The other thing to think about is that we are not like forgetting about the projects that are kind of, did not make it to the very, I hate to say top of the list because we don't want to do, every project is someone's top. But, those 5 projects, my experience at the regional council, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, is that some of these really may be appropriate to apply for consolidated funding application. So there might be other funding available that, that can be looked at, and that once there's more time to fully understand, the implications of everything, would be very appropriate for CFA. So with that, I'm going to yield my.
With that,
And I would-
the co-chairs have put in their 2 cents worth, maybe 3
Yeah.
cents worth, and now we're gonna let everybody else talk.
Okay, sounds good. I'm on my third microphone. I hope this is a bit better. I'm not like right up on it. I'm trying to.
I'm just gonna say, if that's a third microphone, we're gonna have to change you.
I know, I think it's me. I'm sorry. I think we can go ahead with the presentation. Thank you both so much, Marcia and Mayor Levin, for weighing in. We're going to dig in here and discuss the projects in some more detail. Jamie, is it possible for you to change the slide? Okay, so Elizabeth, you can cover.
Oh, thank you.
Like, yeah.
I want to go across.
Okay, thank you. Great. All right, so here's the agenda for tonight's meeting. We've already covered the conflicts of interest, disclosure, and recusals. The lion's share of the meeting will be discussing the preliminary slate of proposed DRI projects. And then we'll talk together about our next steps as we near the end of this process. And we'll have an opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. Folks who are joining us online will have the opportunity to speak. Okay. Jamie, if you can go to the next slide. Here's a little more information on the opportunity for public comment. There are a few ways to ask a question. You could raise your hand using the Zoom function, or press *9 if using a phone. If you raise a hand during the presentation, we will see it and we'll address it during the public comment session. We've disabled the chat during the meeting to try and reduce distraction. And I'll just remind folks that this meeting and all the commentary discussion is being recorded. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we've already covered welcome, conflicts of interest. We'll keep moving to the next. Okay, so here we are. We can skip to the next slide. Thank you. We are at the second to last local planning committee in the village's DRI planning process. And the goal for today's meeting is to identify a slate of projects that ultimately would have a transformational impact on downtown Ossining, thereby meeting the goals of the DRI program and the vision goals set out for the village of Ossining. Each DRI community, you may remember, is awarded $9.7 million in DRI funding for improvement projects. Per guidance we've received from the Department of State, each LPC should identify a slate of projects that totals between $13 and $14 million in DRI funding requests. And this is, as we were discussing before going live, this is because we want to identify more projects that could be funded in the event that a project for some reason stalls or otherwise can't move forward. We have a couple of others identified. Today, the preliminary list of the 15 projects that we've discussed over the last 6 months or so totals approximately $15.7 million in DRI funding requests. So we're pretty close. But unfortunately, not all of the projects will be able to be put forward to the state for DRI funding. As was already said by Marcia and by the mayor, all the projects are excellent. And those that are not proposed for DRI funding can be included in a list of complementary projects that will be highlighted for other sources of state funding. So today's meeting is to discuss the results of the most recent LPC assessment and confer about a path forward. And then at next week's meeting on Tuesday, the LPC will vote on the final slate of projects for inclusion in the plan. I do want to flag that we had a community meeting on Tuesday night. It was a great meeting. We described all 15 of the projects that are under consideration, and folks at the meeting took part in the feedback activity where they, using tickets, selected the top 5 projects that they felt were most important toward downtown revitalization. We have that same activity now available online, and it's going to be open through this weekend. And early next week, we'll share those results, and we will review them with you on Tuesday before the vote on the final slate of projects. I can say anecdotally, we have not dug into all the data, but we've already received over 300 responses, which is great. We received 150 responses on the survey we put out in May. So we've already doubled the responses. And largely, for the most part, the feedback that we're getting aligns with the LPC assessment results as well. But we'll be able to dig into that a little bit more next week. Okay, so without further ado, Jamie, if you could change the slide. This is the result of the LPC assessment that was completed last week. So you can see here that the projects are listed geographically, sort of starting at the top of Main Street and moving down toward the waterfront. And we've created a bar graph for each. And the bar graph shows the LPC's level of support for each project, given the assessment using the established project evaluation criteria. So if there's more blue in the bar graph, that means folks agree with putting the project forward in the DRI plan. If it's darker blue, then that's a strongly agree. And on the other side, on the left side of the graph, if there's orange and red, that indicates that folks disagree with putting the project forward. And again, the red is strongly disagree. And so taking a look at this bar graph, you can see there are a couple of projects where everyone is fully in agreement. So that's cool. They're the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center project and the Market Square Public Plaza project. And there are another 2 where folks are nearly in total agreement. And that's the building a multimodal transportation center and preserving and adaptively reusing the historic bank building at 200 Main Street. So that cluster of projects, which are coincidentally at the top, have really strong support. There's then a group of projects that you can see in the middle, right? That have varying levels of support. And then perhaps one where I think folks largely agree it ought not to move forward, the public art project. So we're going to dig into this a little bit more. Jamie, if you could change the slide. Oh no, too far. You could go back maybe to one more. There we go. Oh no. Can you go forward one more?
What am I missing? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. If you just go forward one more click, there's just a line that appears. There we go. We're good.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought that was my screen.
Including effects here. So the grant program for commercial building facade improvements. By way of project update, this project has been removed from the project list at the recommendation of the project sponsor, the Village of Ossining. You may recall that this project had a total project cost of $660,000, of which the village was seeking $600,000 through the DRI program. And the purpose of the program was to provide grants to commercial property owners for building facade improvements. Throughout this process, we've been in conversation with the state, specifically at Homes and Community Renewal, and with a community financing partner who had helped implement the program. And through those conversations, there's been, I think, a number of concerns raised about implementation, because in the past, these projects have in fact been difficult to implement for a handful of reasons, not least of which being the increasing construction costs and availability of contractors in this moment. And so for that reason, we felt like it was appropriate to take this project off the list, and it may be eligible for other funding sources from the state in the future. So that's the most significant project update of the batch. Okay, Jamie, if you go one more click. I now wanted to highlight those projects where at least half of the LPC had indicated that they would not put this project forward for inclusion in the plan. So you can see that the public art project in particular, folks seem to agree, maybe this is like a nice to have project, but not rising to the top of the list. Similarly, coincidentally at the bottom of the screen, you can see that the marketing, branding, wayfinding project did not have a majority of support, nor did the public Wi-Fi project. The village pier is sort of an even split, 50-50. And that one, again, half of the LPC indicated that they would not put the project forward for inclusion in the plan. And so if we go to the next slide, what we had done here, what we've done is showed the list of the total DRI funding requests with all 15 projects, and that gets us to the 15.7 million. And then if we go one more click ahead, we'll be at the end of this section. And you can see that by removing those projects where at least half of the LPC did not agree with submitting the project to the DRI plan, that brings our total DRI funding requests down to about 13.1 million. And that's squarely in the zone of what the state has asked us to do. And so I think this is how we wanted to frame tonight's conversation, sort of using the data from this assessment, and then open up the conversation about whether folks, feel comfortable with this approach or would recommend changes. So Jamie, if you go just one more click, the specific. Sorry, I think you've got to go back.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
So the specific questions that we've got just over an hour to discuss are, will this slate of proposed DRI projects have a transformational impact on downtown Ossining? When you look at the projects, the 10 projects that had a majority support, would they have the impact we're seeking? Do you have questions or concerns about this slate of projects? And what additional information would you like before voting on the final slate of projects next week? So with that, I think I'll open it up. I will just add one more piece of information in terms of additional information. We have reached out following last week's conversation to the Olive Opera House and to the Village of Ossining about the Olive Opera House renovation project and the multimodal transportation center, where I think folks were interested in understanding the other financing that would be required to move those projects forward. And we have received information back from the Olive Opera House, speaking to their ability to, in particular, meet the tax requirements going forward. And they've said that in particular, based on current potential tenant relationships and future potential tax scenarios, they anticipate being able to cover the annual costs. And we've asked for a performance to sort of demonstrate that we would share with this committee once we received it. So I think with that, I will pause and ask folks if they have reactions that they'd like to share to the results of the assessment and to our approach moving forward.
Catherine, would you like me to stop screen sharing?
Sure. I'm wondering for folks at home, we have a handout here with the projects. For folks at home, it may actually be better to bring up the list of projects so they have that on the screen to reference.
This one?
Yes.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to go around the room first in person, or do you want to go around the gallery? Or do you want to do one for one?
I would let folks chime in as they feel comfortable.
All right, no problem. I'll let you know when someone has their hands up.
Yeah. Steph.
Yeah.
So first person is Thomas Carey.
But this is not gonna work. So,
all right.
So Catherine, I think it's probably better to go around. It's too hard, Jamie, because you can't see what's going on here. And we can't see whose hands are being raised where we are. So we're just gonna have everybody's gonna be asked to weigh in.
Okay, well, we can start with Seth, who's here in person and has
Yes.
volunteered.
Okay, sorry.
Great, thank
That's
you.
okay.
All right, thanks, everyone. Yeah, so Seth Roy here. First of all, it was helpful for you to explain that these were geographically laid out on this form, because I didn't realize that. And I think that's actually really important, just kind of understanding where our priorities are within the village. It certainly seems like the red gets bigger as we get down closer to the train station. And I think it's just something to keep in mind as we're looking at those projects. Like, I put a C next to all of those projects that are saying that less than 50%. Noting the Wi-Fi and the marketing are not really downtown. So that was just something that I hadn't thought about before when I was looking through this results the other day. And I think the other kind of question, this is more of a question just in terms of the process and procedure. As we're looking through this, the slate, and assume we pick a slate that resembles what we're discussing right now, based on these poll results. When this goes to the state, are these projects prioritized? We have like number 1, number 2, number 3, because as we're looking at 13 million, is that something that the state really looks at?
So we do not prioritize the list, like we want to see like just the slate project, so there is not a priority ranking at all.
Why ranking them on that?
Right,
Yeah.
Understood.
I want to say that I think, sometimes people look at this and decide to give everything a haircut. And I think this makes much more sense in this case because we clearly have some projects where it has less than half of the city support. And so I think fully funding those things and have strong support across the board is a better approach. I'm not thinking strategically, would you get us down to Catherine 13.1? Yes. I'm just wondering if we should add $400,000 to the community center or to Market Square or something, so that if something falls out, there would be more money for our top projects. And we still wouldn't go over our, what's reasonable. Just trying to maximize the benefit.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Yeah. If you'd like to.
I think, I pretty much agree with the way the list has been scaled back. I would just like to say that, I strongly support the peer extension and public Wi-Fi. You could do the peer extension if you didn't do a couple of things. But I strongly remain committed to those and to finding other funding for those. I think public Wi-Fi would help everyone in this village. And the peer, I think, is just a super out of the box, almost romantic notion. My in terms of the tall ships and the sailing ships. I think that we need a little bit more discussion about how that pier will be used, how often, what kinds of ships we can expect. You're gonna almost have to have somebody in charge of programming that pier. If you're gonna be doing any sort of educational types of things and that sort of thing. But I think that could really be really cool. And I know that Peekskill is doing Flashman's Pier. I'm not sure if they're using DRI money for that.
They are using about 180,000, but they have two other Department of State grants.
Right. But they have a very different, I think, idea for their pier, which would be for tourist boats and lots of people coming off and going up to downtown Peekskill. But otherwise, I think this is a really strong list, and I'm really glad that we all agree on this core group of projects at the top, which I think together will really, really catalyze business.
Awesome, thank you. Eric?
I just had a question. I'm wondering if any of these projects that where it's applicable have green or LEED requirements. If there are any, if there's any discussion of, I'm thinking about the parking structure. If there's, any way to integrate solar panels, for example, or stormwater capture devices on the, specifically the projects that create more impervious surface, for example.
Yeah, I can say that for the transportation center parking structure, solar panels are proposed and included in the cost estimate. Those would go on the top level. And then I may turn it over to Susan if you could speak a little bit about the projects that we need to meet the stretch energy code.
Sure. So the Olive Opera House building is one that would need to meet stretch energy code because it's a substantial rehabilitation, and they have incorporated a lot of that into their budget already. So that's something that they've looked carefully at from the beginning. The community center is also one that they could potentially do that. I think we're still trying to get some more specifics on the project because it's not touching mechanical systems or building envelopes. Like it's really hard to go ahead and incorporate that without creating unnecessary work. So that's one that we're still kind of evaluating and talking with NYSERDA about the best way to move forward.
Elizabeth, would you like to chime in with thoughts on the project list?
We can't hear whoever is speaking right now. Can they speak directly into the microphone, please?
Maybe Elizabeth should introduce herself, because I don't know if we came out of her or later. So.
I just want to talk a little bit about this. I know it's a lot of things to talk about. I think like when I was also here with Wi-Fi, I have a question. This is for the whole town. I don't understand this. The launch of the public Wi-Fi network. So this one is for the whole.
It would be for the downtown.
The downtown.
Yeah, including the Main Street corridor and the waterfront.
All the yeah, that's interesting. That's good. Yeah, I see it's a little projects and like she says, you want to enter some spec the market square foot in that side. You want to fix over there. What is the plan for that part?
Yeah, for that project, it would be to enhance and expand the existing public plaza.
It will make different. Yeah. That's the awesome. It's a part of that. It's a good idea. So,
Would you like to chime in?
Okay, so it's helpful to know that really this is a process of deselection rather than selection, chopping a few of these projects off the list rather than picking our favorites, which the public's been asked to do in some recent surveys. We're not picking favorites, we're just narrowing down the selection. And I'm with Dana. I would love to see the pier extension happen. And I would appreciate, Catherine, if it might be possible to switch up the slide to see sort of the close to final slate, because I would love to sort of weigh what we might consider shifting around so that we could make the pier extension happen. I'm looking at the list on the screen now. I personally have very little enthusiasm for the Haverstraw and ferry service. The most exciting thing happening in Haverstraw is not in Haverstraw proper. It's the Gardner Art Center, which is uphill. I think same thing might be said of Austining. Once you get to the ferry station, you have to schlep uphill to get to the where the action's at. So I don't have very much enthusiasm for the ferry service for that reason. So I would eliminate that and maybe some other things to make it into the pier section.
Jane, could you advance the slides to the chart that just has the.
I can barely hear anyone, so I just heard Jamie. Can you tell, so is it, you want me to advance the slide?
Because I think it's just, Adam, to your point, I think we want to hear from everybody, and then that would be the appropriate time to review the list.
Okay, great. So I think we've heard from all the LPC members in the room. So let's go to Zoom. Marlene, I see you've got your hand up.
She has her hand up, but Tom Carey had his hand up earlier.
Okay.
And I think he put it down because it was sort of out of turn.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Tom.
That's fine. Thank you, everybody. And I just wanted to echo Marcia Gordon's comments earlier. I couldn't agree more. You know, so many people did so much work in a short amount of time, reviewing all these projects. And, you know, I do agree. I look at, you know, I live near Peekskill, so I do go out on that pier. But in the same token, and many people, because of the pathway that leads over near the pier, has created a lot of activity over that way. Unfortunately, the top five, you know, I would say the lower five, with all the work that everybody has done voting on these projects, that $13.1 million is big, you know, to have that kind of money to do these projects. Eliminating the lower five, I think is huge. So I just wanted to echo on Marcia's comments. That's all.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, let's turn over to Marlene.
I guess I'm going to flip back to the questions that were actually asked, and the questions asked were, are these projects transformational, and do they have an impact on downtown Ossining? And when we look at that final slate, I kind of had to, you know, if you go back one slide, Jamie, you can look at like that top group. We're talking about the community center, the 200 Main Street, Market Square, and the transportation center. That's like a big square or triangle or diamond or whatever you want to call it. And then you add in the Opera House and the museum, you actually have like this, almost like you can draw, you know, like almost like a walking loop right around from the top of South Highland Avenue right around to Main Street. And if that doesn't transform that area, I don't know what will. When you drive down there now, it's uneventful. There's nothing to look at. There's really nothing great. There's nothing really to do. You know, there's nowhere to park. It kind of gives you like, you're taking the first 6 things and saying, this is what we're looking at to build up the middle of Ossining. When you go anywhere else, that's where people go, downtown Cold Springs, downtown Tarrytown. That's what you want to be able to do. And I also say that if we're going to look at the last 4 on this list, then we're also talking about our waterfront. We're talking about the Plaza Station, the Sing Sing Hill, the waterfront, and the ferry. I'm sad that the pier is not on here. But I'm hoping that there will be money out there for eventually getting that pier done that will also bring in some other things to that area. And I think that, coming in at a place where they asked us to come in at, just when we started this project, when we came in, as the LPC, they said, look, we got these projects, it's way over budget. Can you narrow it down? And I think that we've done enough that we've gotten the middle of Main Street and we've gotten our waterfront. And I think, again, going back to the question, will it transform Ossining? Then my answer to all of these projects would be yes.
Thanks, Marlene. Okay, Brent, I see you've got your hand up. Floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam right now. But it's early in the morning here, but my mind is clear and I'm happy to join you. I agree with what Marlene just said about the impact of creating a critical mass of projects in different parts of in two parts of the community. And I think that's a good strategy going forward. And as I've gotten to know the projects and going into all of the facilities that are proposed in one way or another, I think there could be a dramatic impact on the community. So the planning concept, I guess, of clustering or creating a critical mass of projects is very good. To Tom's point, and what I need to hear from the staff is, yes, 13 million it would be great, but that's not what we're going to get. We're going to get 9.7 million. So what is the process for the state making its final allocation? Has that been discussed? Or maybe I missed it. Thank you.
I'll do my best. So the strategic investment plan will be submitted with the selected slate projects as well as the complementary projects towards the end of July. The state, so Department of State, Empire State Development, and Comes Community Renewal will do their individual evaluations of those and then kind of come back together to determine what are the projects that are going for the 9.7 million. And so those will likely be announced sometime in the fall. As far as any other details on that, I can't really speak to that. I haven't been through the process yet, but that is the broad overview of what's going to happen.
But what's the process? I mean, what is there? Do projects submit more information, or is there an office that does this? I'm not clear about that. What's the process?
Yeah, my sense is that the three different agencies, ESD, HCR, and the Department of State, each have their own vetting process where they will look at the project profile that we at DHB have created for inclusion in the DRI plan, and then speak with the project sponsors to look at supporting information. They, for example, would want to confirm any other financing commitments that have been made. They'd want to really dig into things like site control. And so my sense is that through that vetting process, they'll determine which projects are ready to go, and if they're all ready to go, make a determination about impact from their point of view, using the input that we've gathered through this process.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I mean, the rubric that we are using is something that is in alignment with the state goals, which are very much consistent with the goals that Ossining has identified. So looking for things like public support, transformative catalytic, is in alignment with New York State and regional goals as well. So there is, a rubric that we have that's already established that we'll be using as well.
All right, I hope that helps. I see that Joyce has raised her hand, and then Jeff. Joyce, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm still in transit, so forgive the car background. I'm really happy about doing the survey because I feel like now it's been a lot more thoughtful on all of our parts and picking the projects that should be selected. And I agree with Marlene, because I feel like things have to go in tandem to work. So the transportation, having the parking goes with the, supports the Olive Opera House and the bank. You need that parking and the expansion of Market Square. And I feel like it's transformative and catalytic, not just for new people coming in, but the people that live here and have been here for a very long time. A lot of us leave to spend our money because they're nothing new, nothing exciting. But I think that you're going to see a galvanization of the community that's already here when we have these new, beautiful buildings and places to go and things to do. So I think you're going to see a boom in the people that are here. And this is going to be very special to the community. I also feel, as Dana, very passionate about that the public Wi-Fi for the community. I think sometimes we take into account that we might be a little bit more fortunate than others. And like we can walk around with a MiFi that gives you a stronger Wi-Fi service, but not everyone has that. So I think some of these things would be good for the community as a whole and not just thinking about how we're affected by it. And I still am very, very passionate about that stage down at the waterfront. Everyone uses it. If you've never lived here and lived at the bottom of Water Street and walked up that hill, and I went to school every day and I was thin and young, that is a hill to walk. So having that stage, and we have beautiful concerts and things down there. So being able to, for visitors to come in and just walk off the train and be at our beautiful waterfront with a state-of-the-art stage would be amazing. So I'm gonna leave with that. I hope at the end of this, I'm still thin and young. I'm gonna try to do both of those things. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joyce. I'll add that the waterfront performance space in Lewis Angle Park is included in the 10 projects where a majority of the LPC wanted to move forward with their inclusion in the plan. So that's in the total for the 13.1 million. The public Wi-Fi is not
Fantastic.
at the bottom, but just clarifying about the waterfront park.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, well, let me go ahead and recognize Jeff, and then we can come back for a second round. Okay, Jeff, go ahead, you got the floor.
Yeah, no, just to say that I'm really happy with the selection. You know, as Marlene was saying, I think the concentration, you know, all these projects are really going to complement each other really, really well and really help to kind of reinforce what's already happening downtown. So that's really exciting. I think Dana said it beautifully. You know, I am also a little sad that the pier extension is not in here because I do think, you know, Austining's connection to the water and, you know, there is something romantic. I'm looking out at it now about just having these great big ships coming in and more activity on the waterfront. I think, you know, it's definitely a goal that we should aim for. So, you know, if we're not going to fund it this round, let's definitely put it on a list of priority projects going forward and figure out a way to make that happen. And just the last thing, the facade improvement, you know, I get that it's maybe challenging now, but let's also try to figure that one out because, you know, as much as we can help business owners improve their facades and really kind of improve the walkability and vibrancy of downtown, I think it's going to help complement everything that we're investing in here. So that's it. Thanks.
Can I say something?
Oh, yes, Melita, please go ahead.
Hi, this is Melita, and before I go, I just want to say that I'm very excited that I'm with Jeff and Marlene and Joyce. But we need to concentrate what's best for the downtown. And without having parking, we cannot build the post office lot. We cannot have a good farmers market. So I think we need to have all the priorities that we need in order to make this work. I would love to see everything done.
Your volume went out a little bit. If you can come close to the mic, that'd be great.
You can unhear me?
I can hear you better now when you're a bit closer.
Okay, so I just want to say before I leave that I agree with Jeff and Joyce and Marlene. All these projects are great for downtown Austin, but I think we need to prioritize. I think first it's totally a need for parking in order to build the lots, the empty lots by the post office. Without that, we cannot have the museum, we cannot have people coming downtown, just what Joyce mentioned. So I would love to see everything done, but we need to go by what is the best for the downtown. And eventually in the future, we can do the other thing. But we cannot start just one thing and not finish. We need to, whatever we're doing to attract Austin. And as you know, I'm very passionate about the downtown, and I know this is going to work, but we need to prioritize what is the best for Austin. And for me, the best is parking, the best is building, and the best is tourism with Sing Sing Prison. And I'm with all of you. I'm with Jeff and Joyce and Marlene and whoever is here. And the other projects then will come in the future. So thank you so much. I have to leave right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Melita. Good parting words. Okay, so I think we've heard from all the LPC members who are present. And what I'm hearing is, a real sense that the list of projects where the LPC, based on this assessment, is in agreement, where majority of folks would like to move forward with these projects. This list of projects does have the potential to be transformative for the downtown and build on the development and the momentum that's already underway. And I think it's a wonderful spread sort of throughout the downtown district, from Main Street to the waterfront. And it's I think it's exciting to see this list taken together. We have heard from a couple of people in particular about the public Wi-Fi, which is nearer to the bottom of the list based on the LPC's assessment, and also from the pier extension. I do think that these are projects that we've seen in other DRI communities have received funding from different state funding opportunities, for example, through the CFA program. And so I think what we're hearing from members is that they would like, in particular for these two projects, for there to be the opportunity to pursue funding for those. I'm seeing a hand for Seth.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because when I filled out this survey, I was pretty agnostic on the Wi-Fi. I was also relatively agnostic on the boat service, the ferry service, which are similarly priced. And the ferry service is on the list. The Wi-Fi is not. For me, just kind of listening to everybody talk about this again, I'm going back and forth. I think it's helpful to hear that, and I almost wonder if there was a momentum to switch those two projects in terms of how they're prioritized, and also thinking about the fact that the Wi-Fi is for benefit of the village, right? Benefit of the people here versus the ferry service, which is kind of really bringing other people in. So just a thought.
Yeah, that's definitely a thought. I think the interesting part about the ferry service project is that it's a joint project with the Village of Haverstraw. And so there would need to be a memorandum of understanding between Ossining and Haverstraw in order to operate that weekend service on a pilot project basis. So that's one where I know that there's sort of interest in capitalizing on the award of the DRI in both of these communities, right, that are across the river from each other. But you're right that they are comparable in cost.
And I would say I will note that Haverstraw has also requested $100,000 of DRI funding to support this project.
I just want to say that the Haverstraw-Ossining connection is important, and that one of the reasons I think we both got $10 million is because we are across the bay of Haverstraw, or the river from each other. And when I was at a convention last week, I was lucky to speak with the New York Secretary of State about the DRI, and he emphasized the connection between Ossining and Haverstraw, and I think it's important. I think it's pretty important to the state. I noticed though that it wouldn't start till 2024. I don't know why it would be 2 years to do, but I guess it just takes a while to figure it out. But I also think, if you've got like a new stage on Engle Park, on the weekends, people can come over for the concert. We can go to Haverstraw. I think that you just have to figure out when you get to Haverstraw, you get to, what are you going to do when you get, the waterfront's so different. I'm not sure there's as much going on. down there, so, but, we can figure that out later. But I do think that that connection is super important.
I just want to add, just again, not trying to make a case or not, but there were conversations with Havistraw between the two municipalities. So in addition to the ferry service, there were also conversations with MTA too. So it would increase the people coming over from Havistraw, maybe going to the city, or people coming up from the city and then want to explore. In both communities, in Austin, we're looking at a significant investment in e-bikes and e-mobility infrastructure. We are hopeful to get a grant, but if we don't, that's something we would continue to pursue as a municipality. And we have also heard from the mayor of Havistraw that the ability to get from the waterfront through ride sharing, e-bikes and other things would be part of that too. And that is something that New York Waterways has supported too, because they have done that too, where they have, you go to a destination and then at that destination, say Carricktown, then you can get to Kykuit and other places. So again, not to, I just want to make sure you have the breadth of information available to you on why that was a consideration.
If I would just say, I was actually glad to see that it wasn't been destroyed immediately, because I think the idea was, let's wait till we have something to show. So, once some of these projects, then I think we can generate more traffic.
And I can speak a little bit more to what's happening or some of the proposed projects for Haverstraw. One is a multimodal station that would help facilitate getting from the ferry landing to downtown. There's also some projects including a waterfront sculpture trail similar to what's already there, extending that, a waterfront restaurant. But there are definitely things that are being proposed that will help activate that waterfront as well, similar to what's happening with us.
So just wondering what happens if their DRI committee in Haverstraw doesn't want to go forward with the ferry and we decide we do want to go forward with the ferry.
So what I can speak to is the ferry currently is on their current slate of projects that they will vote for next week. And so it was presented at their community meeting last night as their slate of projects as being on their slate.
Yeah, my sense is like something there. Why they split it up. So the total dollar amount that we are showing right now is roughly 13.1 million. We can leave this dollar amount as is. We could consider potentially adding to it. In thinking about either the public Wi-Fi project or the pier extension project. That said, we're sort of looking for this $13 to $14 million window. I know that Kim, right at the top of the round, you had suggested even potentially adding funding to a project that was highly ranked, I should say ranked, highly supported by the LPC. And so those are options that this group could consider. You could also consider sort of, going ahead with the 13.1, recognizing that then the state will still be reviewing this list of projects and narrowing it further on their side. Yes, sir.
Sorry, just a quick question. Again,
Yeah.
so when we were talking about this, I think the last meeting, is there an advantage to projects that are on the slate, even if they wind up being eliminated? Does that give them an advantage of getting future funding? Is that something I felt like I heard something like that?
I would say that inclusion in the strategic investment plan, whether on the DRI slate or whether as a complementary project, is definitely something that emphasizes that it's important to downtown revitalization. So one is saying DRI funding, that's the slate of projects, but inclusion in that plan is something that the state does look at when reviewing for other potential funding sources.
Susan, to be clear, just so we all understand, some of the projects that we talked about, whether it's the pier extension and public Wi-Fi, can be, as we write the strategic investment plan, can be listed as complementary projects, which I believe then make sure they're on the radar of the state when other grant submissions come in.
And then there's wait for that because they're already vetted as working synergistically with the whole, so again, it's a maybe, I just want to make sure everybody understands this is a starting point and somewhat of an iterative process with the grants, state grant system.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. And through the DRI process, we've been able to bring additional resources to the development of these projects. So in some cases, that's bringing in, a third-party cost estimator. In other cases, it's bringing in an urban design firm. And so we've been able to help support projects that may not be put forward for DRI funding, but are eligible for other state grants and have that added level of attention and development. So I'm curious if folks have any other questions or information needs that you would like addressed before we meet next week. I know that we're continuing to speak with the Olive Opera House team. If there are other information requests, we can take those back. We're at 7:10, so we've actually got some time to spare. There's no need to keep folks. If folks feel like, looking at this list of projects, we feel comfortable with this slate, and then at next week's meeting, we can take a look at the community feedback, which so far has been largely aligned, and then move to a vote. I'm seeing some nods in person. Yeah. Yes, Adam.
We put you on the spot.
Put me on the spot.
I wonder why the 200 Main Street project is as expensive as this.
So the 200 Main Street building is essentially a shell. It is a box. It has no, really, there's very little in it, with the exception of an old safe and remnants of once grand ceiling. So the fit up of that building, depending on who you talk to, we do have people who are interested. I do think that over the next several months, we will identify a sponsor for that. But depending who you talk to and what they want to do, you're talking about a fit up of between $3 and $5 million. There is nothing in that building except walls right now. So it definitely needs an elevator. It definitely needs heating and cooling system, along with other things that you would need to fit it up for virtually any use. So it is not an inexpensive venture to get that building back to where you need it to be.
And I can add, this is one where we did engage a third-party cost estimator as part of the DRI planning process. And so they costed, in addition to the HVAC system and the elevator, they also costed facade repairs, as well as roof replacement and window replacement, and potentially addressing things like water damage that may have happened over the years. And so the cost is, I think, also reflecting the higher cost of construction in this moment. But that's one where we had a third party come in and take a look at it.
That's clear. There's a lesson there. Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
Folks have other questions or concerns to raise?
So the streetscaping in the Station Plaza neighborhood is still on the list, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
All right.
That's one where we also worked with the third-party cost estimators to come in and look at what the cost of resurfacing and sidewalk widening and new plantings would run. Okay, so not hearing other comments or seeing other hands, I think we can move to public comment, if everyone's comfortable with that. Okay, Jamie, could you advance the slide, please? yes, I'll flag the next steps. I think, yeah, folks know we've got the LPC meeting coming up next week on Tuesday. And then after that, our next step will be to submit the DRI plan in July. Okay, so for public comment, you can ask a question or offer a comment using the raise hand feature on Zoom. You can also press *9 if you're using a phone. Please limit your question or comment to 2 minutes. We'll keep time and let you know when that's been reached. And another reminder for folks who may have joined late that the meeting and the commentary is being recorded. So Jamie, I'll turn it over to you to see if there are folks who are participating who raised their hands.
Okay, thank you. We have some people in the gallery for participants. If you would like to raise your hand, if you'd like to participate, I'll bring you over as a panelist and ask that you turn on your camera and turn on your microphone and tell us who you are. It doesn't look like we have anyone that's interested in speaking right now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. I can barely hear you good. So do you want to close this part of the meeting then?
I think we should, and that would close our meeting for the evening. Kim, did you want to chime in?
In light of that, I guess I just want to make one comment, which is I think it's a tribute to all of our work people did in terms of the public input process. That we're this far down this road, and there seems to be some pretty broad-based consensus about the projects that are most significant for our community. And I give a lot of credit to the village leaders because it reflects in my mind, you know, a million conversations that have happened over the years and their responsiveness to what people said. So I appreciate your many hours of listening, negotiating, talking, whatever. I'm really proud of the community's work here.
Very well said. Very well said. I'll say that, you know, at the community meeting, I think folks had a really hard time, you know, identifying the top 5 projects that they felt were most important. And all what we heard from in-person outreach as well is that people are excited about the projects. And a question we get asked is, when can they start? So that's a good question to be asked.
I'm curious to know, are we going to see at the next meeting the results of the community input?
Yes, yes. And our goal, we're closing the survey Sunday night. So our goal is to get you results hopefully Monday night, and then we'll review them together at the Tuesday meeting.
Catherine, is it just okay if I take a quick minute to address some of the things that I'm hearing from people? Because again, when you're doing community outreach, there's also communication back. And I just want to make sure people understand this is a really challenging process. And, you know, it's even when we did the community outreach, we made sure to, as best we could, to explain this is not evaluating what people necessarily like best or pitting one project against another, because that is not what this is about. We put it in the context of not what project you like best, but what project do you think meets the goals? And we shared, you know, I just want everybody to know that we shared these bar graphs with everybody at the community meeting, and we've done that online so that people understand the evaluative, you know, the way we're evaluating this is based on the impact that it will have on transformative economic development. That said, you know, it's still very subjective, and these are all really good projects, and these are all things that the community has talked about for years. But again, from the village's point of view, that this is you know, we would love the state to come back and say, wow, we can make a decision, so we just decided to give you $15 million. I don't think that's going to happen. So in the interest of making sure that we're most effectively using the $9.7 million that we will get, this has to winnow down somewhat. That doesn't mean, though, that everything else is like tossed out. This is the context. This is a building block that greatly helps us get to the next stage. So the likelihood of all of these things happening in the near future is a reality, whether they can fund it or not. So we really just want people to understand there's no real competition for it. It's really about, there is an element of prioritizing based on what we're getting from the LPC, based on what we know so far. Things could change in subsequent conversations as projects maybe that we thought were great don't, or for whatever reasons not as viable, then it could shift everything. But all this sets us in a place where everything on this list and beyond is far greater reality today than it would have been if we never got this.
Yeah, it creates critical mass to start building.
It does attract interest, so I can speak definitively that we are getting interest from people who haven't called before, who are interested in looking at Market Square lot and 200 Main Street. That's happening. I do believe that we will identify sponsors for those projects in the relatively near future. It also has sparked interest in Ossining in a variety of ways, beyond that. So not only for, this is another question, well, why only Main Street? What about the rest of us? This will have a catalytic impact for all of the community. It will help us be able to better address the bifurcation of our business district and other things. So again, it's a starting off point and it's fueling our ability to do this. But by no means is this, it really is just the beginning. And because, a gift of $9.7 million as essentially seed money to go forward, that's a huge boom to any community. So again, I just want to reinforce, because so many people have so many great ideas and so many people are so passionate about different aspects of our community. But this is a really good way to make sure we're prioritizing all of those things with this funding, with municipal funding, and beyond, looking for other funding as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that, our next step will be to draft a DRI plan, the strategic investment plan, that will have detailed project profiles for every project that we've discussed, and also really speaks to the vision that was established back in January and February, the goals that were established for the Village of Ossining, and the project evaluation criteria, which you will use in May to assess these projects. And so we'll be sure to reflect the thought and the analysis that has gone into identifying projects that best align with these goals and create a foundation for continued growth and development. Okay, with that, we can conclude the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
The amount of effort that went into this call. I thank you all.
You said it. Thank you.
Thank you.